My name is Jane Howard, I'm 33 years old. And the night my parents handed my younger sister an $80,000 luxury condo. They looked me straight in the eye and said something that quietly changed the direction of my entire life forever. Jane. You're responsible, you've always figured things out, go rent somewhere. They said it so casually that my sister, Emily, didn't even stop smiling as she accepted the keys. Wrapped in a silver ribbon while everyone around the dining table applauded, I smiled too, not because I was happy. Because I suddenly understood the role I'd been playing in my family since I was a teenager. Emily was the dream they invested in. I was simply the backup plan they never thought could leave. What happened over the next 21 months wasn't revenge, it was something much quieter. And 2 years later, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, my parents stood in front of a house they believed had always belonged to them until I unlocked the front door, handed them a folder, and watched every expression on their faces disappear at the exact same time. But before I tell you why that happened, you need to understand my family. We lived just outside Charlotte, North Carolina, in the same colonial-style house where every holiday looked perfect in photographs and somehow left me feeling invisible. My father, Robert Howard, owned a regional construction company. My mother, Linda Howard, loved telling people how close our family was, and my sister Emily had an incredible talent for turning every mistake into someone else's responsibility. If Emily wanted something, my parents called it an investment. If I wanted something, they called it independence. I didn't argue anymore. People think the loudest child gets ignored in my family. It was always the quiet one, and the night that luxury condo became Emily's, something inside me stopped waiting for fairness and quietly started making a completely different plan. The dinner ended with hugs, laughter, and plans to celebrate Emily's new luxury condo the following weekend. But I drove back to my one-bedroom apartment in South End, Charlotte, with the radio turned off because silence made more sense than pretending I wasn't hurt. I didn't cry. That surprised even me. Instead, I pulled out a notebook that had followed me since college and wrote one sentence across the top of the page: no one is coming to build my future except me. At the time, I had almost $71,000 in savings from 10 years of working as a senior financial analyst, investing every annual bonus, and living far below my means. My parents didn't know that. They had never asked in our family. People only noticed money when Emily needed it. The following Monday, during lunch, I walked into a small credit union in downtown Charlotte and asked a loan officer a question that would quietly reshape my life. If someone wanted to buy an older property instead of a luxury condo, where would you start? She smiled, opened a folder, and spent nearly an hour explaining mortgages, foreclosure auctions, and properties most buyers ignored because they needed work for the first time in months. I felt excited instead of disappointed every evening after work, while Emily posted photos of rooftop pools, designer furniture, and champagne nights in her new building. I drove through older neighborhoods with a notebook on the passenger seat, writing down addresses, property values, and renovation estimates. Nobody knew where I was going. Every Sunday my parents invited me over for dinner, and every Sunday my mother asked exactly the same question: so, are you still renting? I always smiled. Yeah, still renting. She nodded with the same satisfied expression every time before changing the conversation back to Emily's condo, Emily's neighbors, Emily's decorating ideas, or Emily's latest shopping trip. Eventually, I realized something that changed everything. They weren't ignoring my life because they hated me. They simply believed I would always be fine. So I stopped trying to prove them wrong. Instead, I decided I would let success introduce itself when the time was right, and without telling a single member of my family, I made an offer on the one property nobody else in Charlotte seemed to want. The property sat on a quiet street in Dilworth, hidden behind overgrown hedges and peeling white paint. The kind of house people drove past without slowing down because all they saw was work. I saw numbers, I saw possibilities. Most importantly, I saw freedom. The inspection wasn't pretty. The roof had less than 5 years left. The kitchen looked untouched since the late 90s. 2 bathrooms needed complete renovation. Most buyers walked away. I negotiated instead. 3 weeks later, I signed the closing papers without telling a single person in my family. Driving away with the keys in my hand felt strangely peaceful, not because I had bought a house, because for the first time in my life, I had made a decision that belonged only to me. For nearly a year, every weekend became another project. I learned how to manage contractors. I negotiated every invoice. I compared material prices. I painted rooms myself after work while listening to old country music through a portable speaker. It wasn't glamorous, it was exhausting, but every wall I finished felt like another piece of my confidence returning. Meanwhile, Emily's luxury lifestyle became the center of every family gathering. There were endless conversations about rooftop parties, expensive restaurants, designer furniture, and vacations she somehow couldn't afford. My parents always found a way to help when the condo association increased its monthly fees. Dad covered them when Emily wanted custom closets. Mom called it an early birthday gift. Every problem in her life came with a family solution. Mine never did. I kept showing up every Sunday. I smiled, I listened, and when someone asked if I was still renting, I answered exactly the same way. Yeah, still renting. Nobody questioned it. Months passed. Then something unexpected happened. Charlotte's housing market exploded. Properties in my neighborhood climbed faster than almost anyone predicted. An investor knocked on my door and casually offered nearly twice what I had paid. I thanked him and politely declined, because by then I understood something much bigger than profit this house wasn't my finish line. It was the first move in a plan nobody could see. A few weeks later, while organizing paperwork inside the county records office, I noticed an address that instantly caught my attention. It was my parents' house, not because I was looking for it, because it appeared in a list connected to overdue financing documents that had recently become public. I quietly requested the file. The numbers inside made my heart stop. Without telling anyone, my parents had borrowed heavily against the house years earlier to finance Emily's lifestyle and my father's struggling business. The loan was approaching default, and unless someone stepped in soon, the house where we had celebrated every Christmas of my childhood would no longer belong to them. For the second time in my life, I closed a folder, looked out the window, and realized everything was about to change forever. I didn't call my parents, I didn't confront Emily, and I definitely didn't tell anyone what I had discovered. Instead, I spent the next 2 weeks doing something my family had never expected from me. I asked questions. The county records confirmed the loan had been refinanced twice. The final payment deadline was approaching, and if the balance wasn't resolved, the lender planned to move forward with foreclosure proceedings. What shocked me even more was why the debt existed between Emily's luxury condo, repeated financial emergencies, and several failed business investments my father never talked about. The equity in our family home had slowly disappeared. The house that represented every Thanksgiving, every birthday, and every Christmas morning of my childhood had quietly become collateral. The lender eventually approved a private sale before foreclosure. There was very little time. I submitted an offer through my attorney using a newly formed investment company. No family names, no personal connection, just paperwork. A week later, the offer was accepted. The transaction closed without my parents ever realizing who the buyer actually was legally. The house now belonged to me. 3 days later, my mother called, her voice shaking for the first time in years. Jane, we need you to come over. When I arrived, moving boxes covered the living room. Dad looked 10 years older. Emily sat silently on the couch, staring at the floor. My father finally spoke. We have 30 days to move. I listened without interrupting. Mom wiped away tears and whispered, I don't know where we're supposed to go. For a moment, I remembered that dinner 2 years earlier. The silver ribbon around Emily's condo keys, the applause, and one sentence that had echoed in my mind ever since. Go rent somewhere. I reached into my bag and placed a simple folder on the coffee table. Dad opened it. The first page showed the completed purchase agreement. The second listed the new owner, Jane Howard Holdings, LLC. Nobody spoke. Emily looked from the papers to me, completely speechless. Dad slowly removed his glasses and read every page again. Mom's hands covered her mouth. You She whispered, "You bought the house?" I nodded, "I did." The room fell completely silent. Then I said something I had rehearsed 100 times, but hoped I would never need. "I'm not here to throw you out. I'm here to give you a choice that nobody ever gave me. You can stay. You'll never pay another mortgage payment here. But this house will never again be used to rescue bad decisions. Emily. If you want help, I'll help you build a budget, find stable work, and stand on your own feet. Dad, I'll help rebuild the business if you're willing to be honest. Mom. Loving someone shouldn't mean sacrificing everyone else. Asterisk. Tears rolled down her face as she quietly admitted something I never expected to hear. We kept saving Emily because we thought you never needed us. I smiled softly. No. I just stopped expecting you. Months later. Family dinners looked different. Emily found a full-time job and paid every bill herself. Dad slowly rebuilt his company without borrowing another dollar. Mom finally asked about my life before asking about anyone else's, and every time I unlocked the front door, I remembered something that had taken me years to understand. The greatest revenge isn't making people lose their homes sometimes. It's becoming the person strong enough to give them one more chance they never gave you.